Deciding to end a marriage is never easy, and then navigating a divorce can add even more stress.
But does it have to be this way? Joining us now to discuss it is divorce consultant and mediator Michelle Browne. Good morning.
Good morning, Brooke.
Now, this is the busiest time of year, January. Why is that for divorce proceedings to begin?
Yeah, look, I suppose that holiday period together, people make decisions, and when they've spent this period of time together, that they're going to make the move in January. You know, people are often, it's never really about the season, it's not about what's happened, it's underlying issues, and it's come to the front and we say, right, we're going to deal with it. A bit like many other things, I suppose, in life we say we're going to deal with in January. But it's a matter of I suppose, what's really important is when we decide to do it, what is the next best step? You know, the hard decision are made to split, and then what's the next best step, I suppose.
Oh, I can imagine, because Christmas, people, particularly with kids, they want to spend that quality time with the children, and then it gets to January, and of course it is a difficult month for everyone. I was really interested to see, so Ireland is the second lowest rate of divorce in the EU at 0.6 per 1,000, with the European average at 1.6 per 1,000.
Yeah, and those statistics, I suppose, as much as statistics are useful, we need to put them into context with what's going on in Ireland. It's extremely difficult to achieve divorce in Ireland because of our court system. Our court system is allowing cases to take anywhere from 3 to 5 to even 7 years to process our divorce applications.
What?
So
Wow.
that's what we're up against, and it's really important that people understand that it does not need to be so difficult.
Why is it so difficult?
It's so difficult because we don't have enough judges. Our lists are extremely long, but we're choosing that route by and large, whereby we have an alternative. I would really say it's so important that we look at what is it that when couples make this decision to separate, what's really important, okay? So we speak to couples every day who've made that decision. And the top 2 items on the agenda that are really important for couples are the welfare and well-being of their children and their financial security. So, I mean, that's by and large everybody's main concerns are their kids. So we know, unfortunately, that the route to divorce through the courts is extremely damaging on our children. Okay, we know from psychologists' reports that it's causing anxiety and depression in our children and our teenagers.
How can you make it easier then?
So
How can we do
so we need to look at an alternative route. The alternative route is to say, you know, we're not going to take a case against our spouse. We're not going to take that as number one. So we're going to look at the alternative. The alternative is to use mediation to your route to divorce. Now, we have legislation in place. There's an awful lot more the government needs to do to help couples who are going through this horrendous process, which is affecting thousands of people every year. But we have legislation in place to allow for legally binding separation agreements to be drawn up through mediation outside of court.
How can people do that?
We need to, first of all, change our mindset that we're taking each other to task. And that's a societal issue as well. So, technically, you need to be able to change your mindset, but you need to find a person who's going to work with the 2 parties and decide not to take that case against each other. So we need to stop and think before, what's our first step? I would be saying, by and large, find yourself a mediator who will work with the 2 parties.
Would that have to be like a solicitor? Would that have to be a family friend?
No, it needs to be. Solicitors are mediating, barristers are mediating. You need to find a specialist mediator. You can't have both. You can take legal advice by all means, but you need not to be rushing into court cases. Court cases need to become the last resort. We need to be fully aware of the damage it's doing, because once they start, they're very hard to get out of.
And the cost.
And they're so expensive. Is it 30,000 per person on average?
We would, and the rest. I mean, we have a 2-tier court system. We have Circuit Court and High Court. Circuit Court would have average costs of 30 per head, and the High Court, you're into hundreds of thousands.
So can the mediation take that down?
The mediation is an alternative. There is no need to go near a courthouse for your legal separation if you are dealt with through mediation. So that is by and large.
But with such a low divorce rate in Ireland, due to some of the issues that you talked about as well, I didn't realise that there's no prenuptial agreement allowed in Ireland either.
Yeah. Well,
would that, do you think, yes, we don't want to see more divorces, but at the same time, if people are unhappy in their marriage...
In having a system that you can achieve divorce does not mean we're advocating for divorce. We have had divorce in Ireland. The first divorce was 97, but since then it's become extremely difficult to achieve it. So why is it legislated for? Absolutely. The legislation to put divorce in place needs to be supported by other legislation, and one of those is recognising prenups. If we were to recognise prenups, it would drastically change what we're dealing with in the courts. If you can imagine, you have an agreement, should the worst happen and you split up, this is what we do with our jointly owned assets, this is what we do with assets we owned previously to coming into the marriage. And there is no need for these protracted cases. This is up to the government. This is something that could be dealt with without high costs, with minimum time, to legislate for it to be accepted in court. Yeah.
Do you think there's any stigma behind prenups or prenuptial agreements?
Yeah, they're not very romantic, but you know, I suppose the demographics of people getting married nowadays have changed. People are getting married for the second and third time, and really, it's really, really important that we look at how to reduce the figures. The figures in courts are so high. For example, we had a family law day in the local courthouse in Naas beside me last November. The court list was cut off at, say, 78, and 50-odd cases are thrown over to be dealt with in April of this year. Wow. You know, this happens all of the time up and down. We need to do something to help reduce those. But number one, I will be saying to change the focus from these court cases in the best interest of our children to deal with it through mediation.
We'd love to hear from you at home on this. Have you been through a divorce? Have you considered divorce? How frustrating is it? How disappointing is it? And upsetting is it? Get in touch with us, 0896 111 111, or scan the little QR code there. Michelle Browne, divorce consultant. Thanks so much. Thanks. And mediator. Great to have you with us, Michelle.
Thank you very much, Tommy. Thanks.